It was a regular Tuesday evening when everything changed. I was sitting in my small apartment, working on my laptop, trying to finish a project that was due the next morning. The clock showed 9 p.m., and I was tired, stressed, and honestly just wanted to sleep. But deadlines don't care about how you feel, right? I lived on the third floor of an old building in the city. The walls were thin, and you could hear everything from the neighbors. Music, arguments, laughter, all of it became part of daily life. I had gotten used to it over the past 2 years of living there. My neighbor from across the hall was a woman named Priya. She was in her late 20s, worked at some tech company, and we'd exchange polite hellos whenever we crossed paths. Nothing more than that. We were just neighbors who respected each other's space and privacy. That evening, I heard her door open and close. Footsteps in the hallway. Then suddenly, someone was banging on my door. Not knocking, banging. Like the building was on fire or something terrible had happened. My heart jumped. I rushed to the door and opened it without even checking the peephole. There stood Priya, and she looked absolutely panicked. Her eyes were wide, her face was pale, and she was breathing heavily like she'd been running. "Please, I need your help right now," she said, her voice shaking. "What happened? Are you okay?" I asked, stepping aside to let her in. She rushed past me into my apartment, looking back at the hallway like someone was chasing her. "Close the door. Lock it, please." I did what she asked, feeling my own panic rising. "Priya, what's going on? Should I call the police?" She shook her head quickly. No police. I need to stay here for a few minutes. Someone's been following me." My apartment suddenly felt smaller with another person in it, especially someone in distress. I'd lived alone for so long that having anyone in my space felt strange. But this was clearly an emergency. "Following you? From where?" I asked, trying to understand what was happening. She walked to my window and peeked through the curtain, staying to the side so she couldn't be seen from outside. I noticed him 3 blocks from my office. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. Same direction, you know? But then he followed me to the subway, got off at the same stop, walked behind me all the way here. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was serious. Did you see what he looked like? Tall guy, dark jacket, baseball cap. He kept his distance, but never stopped following. When I got to our building, I ran up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I heard footsteps behind me, but I'm not sure if he came inside or not. I moved to my door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty and quiet. I don't see anyone out there now. Priya finally moved away from the window and sat down on my couch. Her hands were trembling. "I'm sorry for barging in like this. I didn't know what else to do. My phone's almost dead, and I felt safer coming to your door than being alone in my apartment right now. Don't apologize," I said, sitting in the chair across from her. "You did the right thing. Do you want me to check the building? Or we can call building security?" She thought about it for a moment. Maybe just wait a few minutes. If he was really following me, maybe he'll give up and leave. So we waited. The silence in my apartment felt heavy. I could hear her breathing slowly returning to normal. My laptop was still open on the coffee table, the unfinished project glowing on the screen. It seemed so unimportant now. "I've lived in this city for 5 years," Priya said quietly, breaking the silence. "This has never happened to me before. I've always felt safe. I take the subway late at night sometimes, walk alone. Never had any problems." "It only takes once to shake that feeling," I replied. "But you handled it smartly. You stayed aware, you didn't ignore your instincts, and you found a safe place." She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. "What if he knows where I live now? What if he comes back?" That was a scary thought, and I didn't want to make her feel worse. But I also didn't want to lie to her. "We'll figure this out. First, let's make sure you're safe tonight. Then tomorrow, you can report this to the police and building management. They can check security cameras, maybe identify the guy." "You're right," she said, taking a deep breath. "I'm just really shaken up right now." "That's completely normal," I assured her. "Anyone would be." We sat there for another 10 minutes. I made her some tea, which she accepted gratefully. Her phone finally died completely, so I offered her my charger. While it powered up enough to turn on, she kept glancing at the door, still nervous. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a while. "Of course. Why did you open the door so quickly? Without checking? That could have been dangerous too." I paused, realizing she was right. Honestly, I heard the panic and the knocking. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like someone needed help. I guess I just reacted. She gave me a small, tired smile. "Well, I'm glad you did. Thank you for letting me hide out here." "You're not hiding," I said. "You're being safe. There's a difference." After about 30 minutes, Priya's phone had enough charge to turn on. She immediately checked it, scrolling through notifications with worried eyes. Nothing unusual. No strange calls or messages. That was something, at least. "Do you want to look outside again?" I suggested. "See if the coast is clear?" She nodded, and we both moved to the window carefully. I pulled the curtain back just slightly, and we looked down at the street below. It was a typical evening. A few people walking their dogs, someone getting out of a taxi, cars passing by. No one in a dark jacket and baseball cap standing around suspiciously. "Maybe he's gone," Priya said. But she didn't sound convinced. "Let me go check the hallway and stairwell," I offered. "I'll just take a quick look around our floor and the one below. If I see anything weird, I'll come right back." She looked hesitant but nodded. "Be careful, please." I grabbed my keys and phone, unlocked my door, and stepped into the hallway. Everything was quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting that familiar yellowish glow on the worn carpet. I walked slowly to the stairwell door and opened it, listening carefully. Nothing. No footsteps. No sounds of anyone lurking around. I went down one flight of stairs to the second floor. Checked that hallway too. Empty. When I came back up, I knocked on my own door. "It's me," I called out softly. Priya opened the door quickly and let me back in. "Anything?" "Nothing at all. The building seems normal. I think whoever it was either didn't come inside or already left." She let out a long breath. Okay, that's good." But I could see she was still tense, still worried about going back to her own apartment alone. "Listen," I said. "Why don't I walk you across the hall? We can check your apartment together, make sure everything's locked up properly. Then if you want, I can give you my number. If you hear anything strange tonight, anything at all, you can call me immediately." Her expression softened with relief. "Would you mind? I know I'm probably being paranoid." "But you're not being paranoid," I interrupted. "You're being cautious. Big difference. Come on, let's go check your place." We stepped out into the hallway together. Her apartment was literally 15 feet away, directly across from mine. She unlocked her door, and I followed her inside. Her place was similar to mine in layout, but decorated completely differently. She had plants everywhere, colorful cushions on the couch, photos on the walls. It felt warm and lived in. "Let me check the rooms," I said. I went through her small apartment quickly but thoroughly. Bedroom, bathroom, even the closets. All the windows were locked. Everything was exactly as she'd left it before going to work that morning. No signs that anyone had tried to get in. "All clear," I reported. Everything looked secure. Priya stood in her living room, looking around her own space like she was seeing it differently now. "This is so strange. This morning, I left here thinking about what to have for breakfast. Now I'm scared in my own home." "That feeling will pass," I told her gently. "It might take a few days, but it will, especially once you report this and take some extra precautions." "What kind of precautions?" she asked. "Well, definitely report it to the police tomorrow. Even if they can't do much, there'll be a record. Talk to building management about checking the security cameras. Maybe vary your route home from work for a while. Stay aware of your surroundings. And like I said, you can always knock on my door if you need anything." She typed my number into her phone as I recited it. "Thank you. Really? I'm sorry I interrupted your evening. It looks like you were working on something important." She'd noticed my laptop still glowing with the unfinished project. "That project isn't more important than making sure you're safe," I said simply. I can finish it later. After making sure she felt comfortable, I headed back to my own apartment. The door closed behind me, and suddenly my space felt different too. I'd lived in this building for 2 years without really knowing my neighbors beyond polite hellos. Now, in one evening, that had changed completely. I sat back down at my laptop, but I couldn't focus on work. My mind kept replaying the panic in Priya's eyes when she'd knocked on my door, the way her hands had trembled while holding the teacup, the fear in her voice when she'd asked if the man might come back. It made me think about how vulnerable we all are in this city. Millions of people living close together, yet somehow alone. We build walls, keep to ourselves, mind our own business. And usually, that's fine. But sometimes, someone needs help. Sometimes, a stranger knocking on your door isn't an intrusion, but a person in genuine distress. I finally gave up on the project around midnight. It wasn't getting done tonight, and I'd have to email my boss in the morning with an excuse. Some things were more important than deadlines. Before going to bed, I checked my phone. There was a text from Priya. "Thank you again. I feel much better knowing you're across the hall. Sleep well." I replied, "Anytime. My door is always open if you need anything." Sleep well. As I lay in bed, I found myself listening to the building sounds more carefully than usual. Every creak, every footstep in the hallway, every door opening or closing. I was more alert now, more aware. One evening had changed my perspective completely. Tomorrow, things would hopefully return to normal. But something told me that Priya and I wouldn't just be polite neighbors anymore. Sometimes crisis brings people together. Sometimes fear reminds us that we need each other. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my alarm feeling like I barely slept. The project I was supposed to finish still sat incomplete on my laptop. I quickly sent an email to my boss explaining that a family emergency had come up, and I'd need until noon to submit the work. It wasn't entirely true, but helping someone in danger felt more important than strict honesty about a deadline. I made coffee and was getting ready for the day when I heard a knock on my door, softer than last night's panicked banging. I checked the peephole and saw Priya standing there, looking much calmer than she had 12 hours ago. "Good morning," I said, opening the door. "Morning," she replied, holding two paper cups of coffee. "I hope I'm not bothering you. I went to the cafe downstairs and got you this. As a thank you for last night, I accepted the coffee gratefully. You didn't have to do that, but thank you. How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected, honestly. I kept your number on my screen all night, just in case. But nothing happened. No strange sounds. No one tried to get in. I think I was just exhausted and passed out around 1. "That's good. Are you planning to report what happened?" She nodded seriously. "I'm going to the police station on my lunch break. I also already emailed building management this morning. They said they'd check the security footage from yesterday evening and get back to me." "That's smart," I said. "The more people who know, the safer you'll be." We stood there in the hallway, both holding our coffee cups. It felt strange, this new familiarity between two people who'd been near strangers just a day ago. "Can I ask you something personal?" Priya said, looking at me carefully. "Sure. Do you live alone?" "I've never seen anyone else coming or going from your apartment." "Yeah, just me. Have been for about 3 years now, since my last relationship ended." "You, same, alone for 2 years. I moved here for my job, and most of my family is in another state. I have friends in the city, but no one super close by." There was something sad in that admission. Here we were, two people living 15 feet apart, both essentially alone in a city of millions. We'd existed in parallel for 2 years without really connecting. Well, we're neighbors now. Actual neighbors, not just people who live near each other, I said with a small smile. She smiled back. "Yeah, I guess we are." Later that morning, after I'd finally finished my project and sent it off with an hour to spare, before my extended deadline, I thought more about the previous night. Something had been bothering me, a question I couldn't quite answer. Why had Priya chosen my door? There were 4 other apartments on our floor. She could have knocked on any of them, but she'd come to mine specifically. Was it just because I was directly across from her? Or was there something else? Around lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Building management just sent me the footage. They got a clear shot of the guy's face. Forwarding it to police now. He did come into the building, but left about 5 minutes after I got inside. Security is being extra vigilant now. I replied, that's great news. At least they have him on camera. Did he look familiar at all? No, complete stranger. Which somehow makes it worse. Random targeting is scarier than someone with a specific reason. She was right about that. Random violence, random stalking. It all felt more frightening because there was no logic to it. No way to predict or prevent it. That evening, I made dinner and found myself thinking about Priya again. About how scared she'd been. About how grateful she'd seemed when I'd helped her. About how we both admitted to being alone in this city. On impulse, I sent her a text. Hey, I made too much pasta. Want to come over and help me eat it? No pressure, just thought I'd offer. She responded almost immediately. That sounds really nice. Actually, give me 10 minutes? When she knocked on my door this time, it was gentle and expected. She came in carrying a bottle of wine and that same small smile from the morning. I figured pasta goes well with wine, she said. We sat at my small kitchen table, eating spaghetti and talking about normal things. Our jobs, our F. Over the next few weeks, Priya and I fell into an unexpected routine. We'd check in with each other most mornings, sometimes just a quick text. Other times meeting in the hallway for a brief conversation. A few evenings a week, one of us would cook and invite the other over for dinner. It wasn't planned or formal, just something that happened naturally after that frightening night. The police investigation into her stalker didn't lead anywhere conclusive. The man in the security footage wasn't in any system, and he never showed up again near our building or her workplace. It was as if he'd vanished. While that should have been reassuring, Priya admitted it sometimes made her more nervous. At least if they'd caught him, she'd have closure. I still look over my shoulder constantly. She told me one evening while we were having coffee on my couch. I thought it would get better after a couple weeks, but I'm just as vigilant now as I was that first night. That's probably not a bad thing, though. I said, being aware of your surroundings is always smart in the city, I guess. It's just exhausting, you know? Being on alert all the time. I understood what she meant. Even I become more cautious since that night. I paid more attention to who was in our building, who was walking behind me on the street. Unusual sounds in the hallway. One person's fear can spread, making everyone a little more careful. One Saturday afternoon, Priya knocked on my door holding a book. I found this at a second-hand shop and immediately thought of you. You mentioned you like mystery novels. I took the book, surprised and touched. It was an old Agatha Christie novel I'd never read. Thank you. You didn't have to get me anything. I wanted to. You've been really kind to me these past few weeks. More than just that night. You've been a genuine friend. The word hung in the air between us. It was true. We had become friends. Real friends, not just neighbors who occasionally nodded to each other. But there was also something else there, something neither of us had acknowledged directly. You've been a good friend to me too, I said honestly. I didn't realize how isolated I'd become until we started actually talking. I was just going through the motions of life, you know? Work, home, sleep, repeat. Having someone to share meals with, talk to, it's reminded me what connection feels like. Priya smiled, but there was something sad in her eyes. I know exactly what you mean. My family keeps asking me why I don't date anyone, why I spend so much time alone. I tell them I'm focused on my career, but really, I think I'd just gotten used to being by myself. It felt safer somehow, and now, I ask quietly. Now I'm realizing that being alone might feel safer, but it's not really living. That night, when I was scared and came to your door, I wasn't just running from someone following me. I was running towards someone I somehow knew I could trust. That's different. We spent the rest of that afternoon talking about loneliness, about the strange isolation of living in a crowded city, about how easy it is to become disconnected from other people even when they're all around you. My mom called yesterday, Priya said. She could tell something was different in my voice. I told her about what happened and about you. She wants to know when she can meet the neighbor who helped her daughter. Your mom wants to meet me? I felt unexpectedly nervous about that. Don't worry, she's not going to interrogate you or anything. She's just grateful and curious, I think. I haven't talked about anyone in my life in a long time. The following week, Priya invited me to join her for a video call with her parents. It felt like a big step, being introduced to her family, even virtually. They were warm and welcoming, thanking me repeatedly for helping their daughter that night. We worry about her living alone in the big city, her mother said. It makes us feel better knowing she has a good neighbor looking out for her. After the call ended, Priya looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. That wasn't too awkward, was it? Not at all. Your parents are lovely. They really like you. My dad texted me while you were in the bathroom that you seem like good people. She laughed. That's high praise from him. That night, after Priya had gone back to her apartment, I sat alone thinking about how much my life had changed in just a few weeks. I'd gone from being a person who barely interacted with his neighbors to someone who was having video calls with a neighbor's family. It was unexpected and strange and honestly, really nice. But I also felt something else. A growing awareness that my feelings for Priya were becoming more than just friendship. The way I looked forward to seeing her each day. The way her laugh made me smile. The way I found myself thinking about her at random moments. This complicated things. We were neighbors. We'd become friends during a crisis. Was it wise to develop romantic feelings for someone who lived 15 feet away? What if things didn't work out? The potential awkwardness was enormous. I decided not to say anything. Not yet. Maybe these feelings would pass. Maybe they were just a result of spending more time with someone after being alone for so long. Maybe I was reading too much into a simple friendship. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The question was whether Priya felt the same way, and whether either of us was brave enough to risk our comfortable friendship by admitting it. For now, I'd keep those thoughts to myself. We'd continue as we were, sharing meals and conversations, being there for each other as friends. That was enough. Or at least, I keep telling myself it was enough. A month after that frightening night, the city experienced a massive rainstorm. The kind of downpour that floods streets and has everyone running for cover. I was at work when it started, watching through the office window as the sky opened up and sheets of rain pounded the pavement. Below, my phone buzzed with a text from Priya. Building management just sent an alert. There's flooding in the basement and the elevator is out of service. Hope you don't have too much to carry home. I looked at my bag, which contained my laptop and several files I needed to review over the weekend. Not too bad. I could manage the stairs. The subway ride home was crowded with damp, irritable people. Everyone had the same idea. Get home as quickly as possible and wait out the storm. By the time I got to our building, I was soaked despite my umbrella. Water had found its way into my shoes, and my pants were wet up to the knees. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs, leaving wet footprints on each step. When I reached our floor, I saw Priya standing in the hallway outside her apartment, looking distressed. What's wrong? I asked immediately. My ceiling is leaking, she said, pointing inside her apartment. There's water coming through in my bedroom and bathroom. I've put buckets under them, but I think it's coming from the roof. The people upstairs aren't home, and I can't reach building management. Their line just rings and rings. I followed her inside and saw what she meant. Steady drips were falling from 2 spots on her ceiling, splashing into plastic buckets she positioned underneath. The sound was rhythmic and ominous. This is bad, I said. If the roof is damaged, this could get worse before it gets better, as if to prove my point. Another section of her ceiling suddenly began dripping. Priya quickly grabbed a pot from her kitchen and placed it underneath. I can't stay here tonight, she said, looking around her apartment with worry. What if the ceiling collapses or something, and all my stuff? Come stay at my place, I offer without hesitation. Bring whatever you need. We'll keep checking on your apartment every hour to empty the buckets. But you shouldn't sleep here tonight. She looked relieved. Are you sure? I don't want to impose. You're not imposing. That's what neighbors do, what friends do. Priya quickly packed a bag with clothes and her laptop, grabbed her phone charger, and we moved everything across the hall to my apartment. Within minutes, she was set up on my couch with blankets and pillows while the storm continued raging outside. "This feels familiar," she said with a weak smile. "Me hiding out in your apartment during a crisis. At least this time the crisis is weather-related and not human-related," I pointed out. We took turns checking her apartment every hour. The buckets filled quickly and needed constant emptying. The building management finally called back around 8 p.m., promising they'd send someone to check the roof first thing in the morning. But there was nothing they could do tonight with the storm still going. "Looks like you're stuck with me," Priya said when I relayed the message. "I can think of worse people to be stuck with," I replied. That evening felt different from the other times we'd spent together. Maybe it was the storm outside, the sound of rain hammering against the windows. Maybe it was the forced proximity of sharing a small apartment overnight. Or maybe it was just that we'd been dancing around something for weeks, and the universe was pushing us to finally address it. We ordered takeout that couldn't be delivered because of the flooding, so I made grilled cheese sandwiches instead. We sat on the couch eating our simple dinner, watching the rain through the window, and talking about everything and nothing. "Can I tell you something?" Priya said eventually, her voice quiet. "Always. That night when I came to your door scared and panicked, I meant what I said. I came to you because I knew you were a good person. But there's more to it than that." She paused, seeming to gather courage. "I'd noticed you before that night. Really noticed you. The way you're always kind to people in the building. How you hold the door for street